I had my first credit card number stolen probably about the mid-1980s. And the paces seem to have picked up. I more recently got a new credit card courtesy of Home Depot. And it's a high-tech one now. These credit card thefts are certainly costly to the credit card company and inconvenient to us individuals, but for the most part, it's more of an inconvenience than anything else. And we have all gotten emails from somebody from Nigeria who's got a lot of money to give us, and so on. Those emails require a lot of naivety for anyone to click on or respond to. But I think those days are fading. I get the sense that the bad guys have picked up the pace. For example, we got an email from a client not too long ago who was doing some construction on a new vacation home, and they addressed Claire, who most of you know by name, saying that they needed some money for further improvements to their home and to wire transfer some funds overseas. Because it was a very big purchase. Well, we have a lot of policies and procedures in place. So Claire, it was our first line of defense and didn't get any further than Claire. But they used the client's email address and they used Claire by name. So that gave us a sense that things are changing. We've also heard other stories about someone who lost a cell phone or who had a cell phone stolen at a shopping mall, reported to security, came home, and they got a call from, quote, security saying they found the cell phone, and if they just come down, pick up the cell phone, they will return it to her. Well, when she was in transit, her home was burglarized. We had another instance where one spouse got an email or a text message from another spouse saying they forgot their bank PIN number. And you can imagine what happened. So the moral of the story is not to trust your spouse. The moral of the story is not to trust emails or text messages that you receive that may have come from a source that you really think you know. Because emails can get hacked. So the threat to our security is really growing, and we as both individuals as well as businesses are taking it much more seriously. And I want to thank Nick Sabetta, who we'll introduce in one moment, for being here. He's devoting his own time to doing this, and John will tell you a little bit more about Nick's background. Nick last made a presentation to several groups in our area back about 7 years ago, and that's how we got to know Nick. I wanted to thank John Flanagan, who really organized this whole event, for all his work, and for the Simsbury Public Library for allowing us to use their facility. We found out after this event was organized that the public library really is not wild about us opening this up to the public, but they did allow us to do it this one time. They prefer to have private events in the public library, but I haven't quite figured that out yet. So we do appreciate everything, and John, we'll give you a little bit more background about Nick.
How's everybody doing tonight? Good. Good. Nick Sabetta has 35 years of combined experience in law enforcement and security. He is a retired Connecticut State Trooper. You wouldn't think he'd be retired if you look at him. He looks too young. He is certified by the Bureau of Justice as a state and local anti-terrorism trainer. He is a veteran of the Connecticut Army National Guard. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Law Enforcement Administration, as well as a degree in Security Management from the University of New Haven. Nick was appointed as a member of the Board of Pardons and Paroles, as a member of the Pardon Panel by Governor Jody Rell in 2010, where he's still a member. He is currently Assistant Vice President for Liberty Bank as a Security Investigations Manager. And even though it's very cold out tonight, let's give him a warm welcome.
Okay, we got the formalities out of the way. Thanks for coming tonight. I'm glad to see a good group of people that are interested in trying to protect their identity and their credit. How many people here, by show of hands, were ever a victim of identity theft? A few. Credit card? Just about everybody's hands are going on this one. Many of you, believe it or not, were probably a victim of identity or of credit card theft. You just didn't realize it because a lot of banks will not tell you that your card was part of a compromise. They'll just reissue you a new card. Good news about debit card and credit card is that the federal code Reg E, which is for electronic transactions, which debit card and credit card fall under, protects you, the consumer. The banks literally eat the loss there. Okay? But the ramifications, it's still kind of a traumatic event. And no matter who you are, whatever your occupation is, judge, police officer, doctor, lawyer, okay, we are all susceptible and vulnerable to identity theft and credit card losses. About 2 years ago, I attended a fraud conference out in Salt Lake City. Took my wife with me. Stayed a few extra days. Both of us never been out to Salt Lake City. She wanted to go up to see Sundance, because who made Sundance famous, right? Of course, we didn't get to see Robert Redford. Okay. I'm watching these two gentlemen, because it's kind of an artisan colony there. They're blowing glass. She's in the gift shop. All of a sudden, I hear in a sheepish, honey. I'm like, okay, what did she break now? Because she has a tendency of doing that. So then she goes, I tried my credit card. She's like in a panic. I'm like, okay, calm down. Sure enough, she tried using her credit card, denied. They tried it manually, denied. So I got, it wasn't Liberty Bank, although I do have accounts with Liberty. But it was another bank that we had been banking with for quite some time. Called them. Fortunately for me, I know the people in the fraud department. Two $850 charges back to back. Okay. Call up Visa, and all the charges were from, they said from Wu. I don't remember a Chinese diner named Wu. And then it dawned on me, what? Spell it. W-U. Western Union. They got the card data. They replicated the card, and they did transactions, cash transactions, or transfers to another account through Western Union. She was kind of, and I said, okay, calm down. We didn't lose any money. We're going to get that money back, and you will. It might take 10 days by statute. The bank or financial institution that holds that card has 10 days to try to make sure that the dispute, the claim that you're making is legitimate and it's not kind of a reverse fraud. You're trying to defraud the bank and falsely claim you're a victim. Okay, so if you're ever a victim of credit card, debit card, you're going to get your money back. Okay, so I want to break this up in a few segments tonight. The first thing, there we go. Okay. The first thing is I want you to have a good understanding of identity theft, the definition, and the statutes that cover that. Because if you are ever a victim of identity theft, and part of the panel that I sat on Governor Rell's Identity Theft Advisory Board, one of the parties on one of the members of the board was a woman who had been, she represented victims. What was her biggest, one of the major factors that she brought forth to the panel was the frustration of getting the runaround. Well, go to report to the police department. Well, the charges happen in Florida, you're going to have to report to Florida. Okay? Here's the definition according to Connecticut State General Statute 53A129A. And as you can see, everything is covered for identity theft. steal your name, your date of birth, social security number, credit card numbers, account numbers, insurance, passwords, look at all the stuff that's covered. It covers everything. Unfortunately, a lot of times the police departments, it's an oversight. They don't charge people. If I got your debit card and used it, it's not only credit card or debit card theft, it's also identity theft. Okay, so that's the definition. Okay. This one I want you to remember, because this is what's going to help with the frustration if you ever get the runaround. Section 54-1N. Now 53As are the criminal code. Most police officers are familiar with that, those codes that fall under 53A. They're not familiar with 54. This is where the language for a complaint by the victim, as you can see, you can file a complaint with a police agency in the town that you reside in. So that's the first thing to remember. If you need to make a complaint, it's the town that you reside in. Doesn't matter where the crime may have occurred, whether they used your card out in Oregon, or it may have gotten stolen down at a restaurant you went to down along the shoreline. It's the town that you reside in. The second thing is right here. That law enforcement agency must take your complaint, must do an active investigation, and it could be just an hour's worth, make a couple of phone calls, and close the case because the charges were maybe done overseas. They must furnish you a copy of the report. So if you're ever a victim of identity theft, credit card, debit card is included, make the complaint in the town that you reside in. They must take your complaint and they must follow up, okay? To this day, I still assist customers of ours who we tell them, well, you have to go to the police department and make a complaint. They go down there, they kind of get the runaround. I have to get on the phone, I have to tell them, look up statute 54-1. Clear as day, it tells you got to take the complaint. Okay. Okay, there are two categories for identity theft. First one is account takeover. The criminals have enough about your accounts that they take it over. Okay, credit card, bank. The second is true name identity theft. That's when they have all of your information. And you'll see from here on out, I'll refer to that as NPPI, it's non-public personal information. That's the terminology we use in banking. Okay, so when they take all of your biographical information, name, date of birth, social security number, driver's license, etc., that's a true name identity theft victim. Okay? Bad news both ends if you're a victim. Good news, account takeover, what can we do? Close the account, end of story, game over. Because that's all they have, is that account information. You close the account, you lock the account, nothing more can happen. The one you want to try to avoid is being a true name identity theft victim. The reason being is, until that person gets caught and you're able to retrieve that information back, they will always have it. This is where we see repeat victims. A woman has sat on the advisory board. 3 times in 10 years she was victim. She'd clear her name, get her credit back up, boom, she'd get hit again. She finally figured out how the thieves got her information. They had purchased her and her husband a timeshare 10 years ago in a Caribbean island. Everybody know how many people own property. You know what you need to release to buy a parcel of property or timeshare or whatever. The management company who went out of business, the original management company, didn't properly dispose of the records. They just threw them in a dumpster in the back. And somebody on the island took that information, realized the value and they either used it themselves or they sold it. A lot of money to be made on that type of information. Okay? Conventional methods. We don't see it as often. 10, 15 years ago, a lot of this was done by the conventional methods. You know, your wallet, license, they steal, purse. Think of what you keep in that. They steal your mail out of your mailbox. You discard your trash, you don't properly destroy it. Okay? Or someone, and a lot of it was done, believe it or not, probably over 50% of identity theft, was originally done by people who had legitimate access. And I want you to think about this. In your lifespan, thus far, how many times have you given out your personal information? Can you list, if I gave you a pen and pencil, can you list everybody you've given that information to? It's impossible. Okay, you started giving that information out when your parents, right? When you probably first got your Social Security card. Hard to. So what can we do to prevent it? Okay. Well, you know what? We could try not to store a lot of information in our wallets and purses. How many people here keep their Social Security card in the wallet or purse? Okay. You really don't have to. A lot of people that are on Medicare, Medicaid, you know, all the doctor, I go to the doctor's office. Why? Your doctor knows who you are. Your file. How many people, when you go to the doctor's office for the first time, what do? They take your identification and they make a photocopy and it goes into your file. Okay? Try to limit what you carry on your person. Credit cards. When I first started doing this presentation, along with a good friend of mine who now works for TD Bank out of Boston, he relocated after he retired, we would ask the audience, like yourselves, how many credit cards? We had one woman, 18 credit, she had the record, 18 different credit cards she held in her purse. And I just told you about the panic my wife experienced. If you got 18 cards, now you're in a state of panic. How are you going to remember who to call, what card numbers, all right? You're going to have to probably, hopefully, you have that information on hand so that when you get home, you can quickly make contact with the companies and, you know, have the credit card number in front of you, because now it's lost and stolen. Okay, so try to limit that. Mailbox, how many people still put things out in the mailbox with the red flag up? Okay, we call that the steal me flag. What are you telling the thieves? Okay, what are we putting in there? Okay, yeah, we're putting checks. Okay, we're putting bank account statements with the account number. Some companies still put the account number. Okay, try not to do that. Try to either bring it down to the post office, drop it off in a secure bin. Don't leave it out in the mailbox. I just had a recent case. Even though, again, we don't see a lot of these, and I'll get into my talk's really going to concentrate on the electronics of identity theft and fraud. But, you know, we don't see a lot of it, but I just had a case last week. Guy put his check for his landlord in the mail. Got stolen out of the mailbox. They altered the check. They cashed it at another bank into a different account. That's an easy one to solve. People are dumb enough to deposit it into their own account. We know who you are. You know, we're going to have you arrested. Okay, not a big clues there. We're going to be able to figure that one out. Personal information. Have a little bin. You get the mail every day, tear off your name, address, anything about you. You know, just tear that section off. At the end of the day, take it over to your shredder. Does everyone here have a shredder? They're the best investment you can make. They're very reasonable, very cheap. Get one. Shred everything. Don't give someone, you know, I'm sure everybody here a resident of Simsbury or one of the surrounding towns? Most of us live in rural areas. You know, we throw garbage, you know, the trash and especially now it's easy with the recyclables, if you're really into recycling. Cloak of darkness, I could be a thief out there just rummaging through your garbage overnight and grabbing every single paper I could get that has your information. So dispose of it properly. If you don't want a shredder this time of year, it's getting colder, you want to start a fire with the paper, you can destroy it real good with that. Okay. So be cautious, very cautious of who you give your information to. Now, I want to also preface, I should have prefaced it earlier, there is nothing that I'm going to tell you tonight, and there's no one out there that can give you advice and guidelines to give you 100% security to never be a victim of identity theft. Impossible. There's ways to greatly reduce the risk, but it's impossible. My parents are 84 years old. They've never owned a computer. They want nothing to do with computers. They're just as susceptible as you or I. Why? Because, you know, the paper that used to, the information that used to be contained in paper and files and probably was in a box in some basement, it's all digitized now, right? Everything's scanned, everything's electronic. Very easy to grab that information if you know how, and the criminals know how. Somebody made a comment before, somebody else I think was talking to. Wow, if they put their mind to good use, think about it. Okay, I am a criminal, I'm a good criminal. I may be tech savvy. I can be in the comfort of my home, not even in this country, but a different country, and I can reach across and grab all your information, and I can literally make millions of dollars. Guess what, folks? I could sleep till noontime every day, and guess what? I don't have to pay a dime of tax. You have to pay income tax to the state of Connecticut and the federal government. Me being a thief, so what incentive do I have? I'm making millions, you're making what in comparison? And you're, you know, most of it gets, or at least a third of it gets taxed. So we talk about, okay, why can't they put their knowledge to good use? That's one reason. Checks, again. You know what? Basically, I need two pieces of information from your checks. Routing number and account number. That's all I need. I could get blank check stock. I could change my name, name, address. Okay? As long as that, because checks are processed electronically. This is called microcodes of magnetic ink. That's the only thing that gets scanned by banks. When people go into a retail store, use a check, what do? It goes through a scanner, they give you back the check, right? All that's doing is just saying, this account is with Liberty Bank, there's ABA matches, and this account is an active account with Liberty Bank. And it debits that account. You're not going to know your checks are stolen or been compromised until what? You get your statements.
What about your signature? Is that even looked at?
No, not if they're going to your bank. The bank should make sure that it's your signature. But if I go to another bank that I have an account with, they're not liable to look at. They don't know if that signature is good or not. If it's yours or not, you're not their customer. Okay. Businesses, we see a lot of counterfeit checks on. Why? Because it takes most businesses clear their checks on a monthly. They don't do it daily. One of the first cases I had, $30,000 case, small business in, down near the shoreline in Connecticut. Their checks were counterfeit. Guess where they were being used? Sacramento, California. By the time they realized they were hit for $30,000, I was able to contact Bank of America out in California with an account. Guess what account? Cleared out. Okay, they opened it, dumped in these checks, grabbed the money, and they were gone. Okay. Because the checks weren't It wasn't their signature, they did affidavits, and we had to pay back that customer $30,000. Yes?
And if they did, does that make a difference?
Not really. The only way that that's clearing the Federal Reserve, and everything goes to the Fed Reserve, basically, they call it a cash sheet, and basically, at the end of the day, here's all the checks that came in for Liberty Bank that gets credited or debited out of Liberty Bank, and then we get it finally back, and that's why across the board, nationwide, everything is considered local. When you cash a check, there's a one-day hold that we could put on a check automatically. If we suspect that we might not collect on that check, it's called a collectability, we can extend the hold up to 6 days. But we have to justify why we suspect that we're not going to be able to collect on it. Normally it's because we feel that it's a counterfeit check. But we're not going to know it's counterfeit. It's your account. You're going to have to notice that it's a counterfeit check and call us to lock the account and say, hey, I have all these checks. These aren't my checks. I didn't sign them. I didn't authorize them. That's not my signature. There's a process to go through. It's going to take a few days. Eventually, you'll get credited back that money. But it's going to take some time. Okay? And the bank doesn't know. All the bank knows, if I get a call from that bank in Sacramento, Bank of America, and they suspect that, hey, I think we got some counterfeit checks, if they called Liberty Bank, we would just look up the account and say, well, there's enough funds in the account. Nothing looks, nothing's flagging here until we call the customer and say, okay, did you issue these checks in this check range for these amounts to these people? And they're going to say no. So that's the advantages that the thieves have with paper checks.
What kind of systems at night are going on against these checks for a particular account holder? For instance, what would kick them out to special reports? In other words, the $10,000 one.
Yeah, well, with our bank,
checks
yes, most banks it's like $5,000. They'll verify checks.
And then what would the bank do then? Is that when they call customers?
Right, they would call the customer.
But would they also look at the account to see that it's repeating a general roll of records?
Yeah, they'll look for anomalies like out of series, the issuance is out of series. Okay. But the point I'm making is just be very careful with your checks. Try to secure them. The thing is they're vulnerable. Anybody that gets them, we have, every bank in the state of Connecticut, we get a run of what we call counterfeit rings. They're usually operated out of the major cities, the urban areas. They'll recruit kids. In fact, we got onto this recent one. Where they were recruiting kids, young kids? Through Facebook. Make cash, easy cash. And they would tell them, okay, you open up an account here at Liberty Bank. They open up the account. The minute they come out, the handler says, okay, give me the debit card. What's the PIN number? Here's your $500. And then what the handler does is they bang the ATMs. They start dumping in checks that this person just opened up at a TD Bank. And we'll take these checks, we dump them into Liberty Bank. We'll take Liberty Bank checks, we'll dump them into Webster Bank. It's kind of what we call, the name is kiting when you use more than one account. By the time the banks realize that, okay, wait a second, these checks, and we start getting the checks returned, they've already depleted the account 2, 3, 4, 5. The one case I had $12,000. Okay, so checks are still a vulnerability. It's pretty much hard to safeguard against it, but you could reduce your risk by 1, don't put your checks out in the mailbox. 2, be careful who you give your checks to. Okay, and safeguard them in your house so that somebody can't steal them while they're visiting you or whatever. Okay, social engineering Still done, a lot of it is done now with electronic means. However, you'll still get telephone solicitation, whether audio or text messaging through your phone. Okay? Email or mail notifications. Social engineering is the one, you know, they'll pretext that they're with a company, an entity. A lot of it is in response to, we have a run sometimes on people that post their resumes and they think they got a job online, okay? And they get a notification and instructions either by mail or email, okay, welcome aboard, here's your first assignment, we'll be sending you a check, deposit the check, etc., okay? Still ways to, the other thing with social engineering is they'll call or email you, and usually the message is to cause alarm. Okay? If it's a phone call, they'll say that they're with a collection agency. You're late on a payment. One that happens every now and then, the caller will say that they are with the courthouse, local courthouse. You failed to show up for jury duty. You're going to be summoned to arrest. Sets you into a state of panic, especially if you've never been arrested. And then, of course, well, ma'am, I have to verify that you're, you know, Mrs. Davis. What's your full name? What's your date of birth? What's your social security? That's how you release the information. We get a lot of elderly people that get a phone call from little Johnny or Mary, granddaughter, grandson. Oh, I'm embarrassed, don't tell mom and dad, please don't tell them. You know, I got arrested, I was drunk and I got arrested, I'm down in Florida, I'm up in Canada, I need to get bailed out, and they instruct her to go down to Western Union and send funds to bail little Johnny or Mary out. Okay? So you got to be careful with phone calls and emails, and I'll get into that in a second. To prevent it, again, never, ever, ever, ever release your personal information, PPI, unless you initiate the communication. So if you receive a phone call, you receive an email, jot down the number that they're giving you, or write down who they claim to be, and then go either online, you know, on a search engine, or on the yellow pages, and look for the legit. If they say they're from the courthouse, look up the local courthouse. Call. Now you know that that number that's listed for the courthouse in the phone book, or in Google, if you Google it, is the actual number of the courthouse. Call them. Identify yourself. Tell them, hey, I just received a phone call from somebody saying, they're going to tell you, no, that's a scam. We would never do that. We would never ask you to release your information. Banks, in particular, they will not ask you to release personal information. They already have it. Okay. Now, if you call them, they will challenge you with the information that they have on hand to make sure you are who you say you are. Because let me tell you, there's not a week that goes by that we have fraudsters, people out there that have some of your information and try to pretend that they are you, calling the call center of a bank saying, oh, I lost my, can you tell me my balance? Okay, and what's your date of birth, what's your account number, what's your mother's maiden name? We get a series of questions that we challenge questions, and unless they have everything, they usually trip up and we terminate the call. We make note. There's a report that goes in, gets generated, that we had intent. Okay? If it's an email, never, ever, ever click on a hyperlink. Okay, that's the little email address that they're giving you. Usually you click on it and it brings you right to the site. You should never, ever click on a hyperlink. Again, unless you confirm that the legitimacy of it. Usually you have to contact whoever's sending you that email to make sure that they legitimately sent it to you.
Opening the email does not correct, or does it? That's, I don't think
There's a risk.
to even open the email, you don't recognize the name.
There's a risk. We'll get in later to like manning the browser and some other things. Again, there's no guarantees, there's no really 100% safe way. I'll share with you some of the ways that we're trying to help you reduce a risk of being a victim. And you know what, again, look at the legitimate email address, look at the legitimate website, look at the legitimate, okay? So those are usually the conventional methods. But again, slowly the shift is going to electronics. Why? Because number one, it's easier. And number two, they don't have to physically grab it from you. They don't have to go to a location to get it. They could do it if they're computer savvy, right from a computer, miles and miles away. And everything is out there. I just told John last week I attended a fraud conference. It was really a fraud conference. I know it was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, but it was really, I went down there for a conference. And a couple of the speakers, and I have some of the slides will have some of the information that I received. But it's alarming. You know, you go, oh my God. Every time you think you're getting a handle, they morph. They just like chameleons. They just keep changing. And it's hard for law enforcement and for people in the security field to keep up with the new trends, with the new slant, with the new scheme. Okay? And as we get into more electronics, because, I mean, look at how much in the last 10 years, for those who use any type of device, things are getting smaller, more powerful. Now we're into mobile banking. Hey, anybody have an Apple Wallet yet? Okay, now we're getting everything, this is it. This is your future. Everything is going to be on these little devices. These are all electronically generated. All this information is going out electronically. If it's not secured properly, it's for the tape. So when we talk about electronic data and theft of it, okay, computer and electronic devices, and the signals that they emit. So what are they doing? They're doing a series of things. The common ones that we see: spam, spoof sites. Anybody know what spam is? Okay, spoof site. They will actually clone a site. We've had it, and there's not a bank out there that hasn't had their website cloned and used in some type of fraud. We had it with our bank. We use a company now that scours the internet for spoof sites of Liberty Bank. What they do is it's a form of a phishing scheme. They pretend, they send you, the hackers or fraudsters send you an email. You posted your resume on a website. So they'll tell you, oh, we have an account for you, Liberty Bank, here's your account number. You go onto a spoof site. It's a replication of the real site. Guess what? The scroll downs work, everything works, the tabs, everything works on it. The only thing is the URL, the website address is different. It's not the legitimate one. So you think, oh wow, that's a real, and then you're releasing money to these people. Okay? So they'll actually spoof a real site. It's also known as a rogue site. It's a rogue site that you're going to. Phishing, vishing, and schmishing, I'll get into that. Viruses, malware, spyware, that's where, this is the high-end tech. When they started embedding, you give them the keys to to your computer. You allow them to come in by clicking on a hyperlink, and they will embed these type of programs into your computer. You will not even know that it's there, that it's been done. Hijacked email accounts, man in the browser, also known as the middleman, okay, or the man in the middle. We'll get into data processing breaches, and then I'll get into some Wi-Fi, which that's a unique experience. So basically, here's a pop-up scam. Anybody ever get these pop-up emails? No, you're on the internet, or all of a sudden you see a pop-up screen, hey, car insurance for $19. If you click on that, that could be a cloned pop-up link. You click on it, it redirects you to a cloned site. Next thing you know, oh yeah, I want this insurance. What are you going to provide? Right? Credit card numbers, social security number, address. You're giving them everything. You're giving them the keys to your personal information. You should never ever click on pop-up spam. That's basically what it is. Okay? So be careful. Again, never click on something. Go to, you know what, if this is Geico car insurance, go to Geico if you want to sign up for it. Don't click on anything that just pops up out of the air. Okay? I'll pick on Canada. You know, it's a clone site. They took it's a real pharmaceutical company in Canada. They just replicated it. If you click on, you know, full product list, you'll get it works. The full pull-down menu will work. You'll think you're on a legitimate site. Okay? If you really don't look at the email address in the browser up here, okay, that's probably not the real company's email address. So you click on it, and again, you're going to be releasing information. So what is phishing? Basically, it's an attempt to get all your information using passwords, credit cards. They masquerade as a trustworthy entity, okay? Through an electronic communication, generally through an email. Could be from a social website like Facebook. Could be a bank, auction site, payment plans. It runs the whole gamut. These they mass blast out there. Okay? If I was a fraudster, I'd get a legitimate email or design of what looks like a legitimate email from a reputable company, and I would blast it out there to about 10,000, 100,000 nationwide. Why? Because the law of probability, I probably, if I get 1%, think about it, 1% to respond and give me their information, that's a good day. I'm going to be looking at 1,000 or more people that are going to be giving me their account information. Spear phishing is a little more personalized. They know a little bit about you. And they'll say, hey, Jimmy, I was told to send you an email with this link from, you know, Jerry. Oh, wow, Jerry's, friend of Jerry's? Okay, and you click on it, and they got you that way. So it's a little more, they know a little more, and they're specifically targeting you. They're not sending it out to the masses. Okay, but they're trying to get you, they're throwing the bait out there for you to release information, either clicking on a link or just, you know, corresponding and eventually giving out your information. So basically that's what a phishing scheme is. Okay? Okay, your presence on the web, that's how you become a target. Okay? One of the classes we're talking about, you know, Wi-Fi, Facebook, social media. These fraudsters and hackers attack. They look for vulnerability. And you know who the main targets usually are? Young kids. Because young kids don't think about what they're doing. How many people here have Facebook? You ever have to see, you know, postings by young kids? What they put out there? It amazes me. I'm like, what are you, crazy? If you go to some people block information for others. Other people just let everybody out there see their information. They'll have their email address, and I'll get into that in a second with, you know, hijacking your email. How easy it is. Well, it's out there for the grabbing, and you got to be very careful. Vishing is another form of phishing, but it's using the telephone. Okay? How many people knew that there were probably well over 1,000 telephone companies throughout the U.S.? You think of telephone, you think of what? AT&T, Verizon, right? Over 1,000. Matter of fact, there's one in, anybody know Woodbury, Connecticut? Woodbury Telephone Company. What the thieves or hackers, fraudsters, whatever you want to call them, what they will do is they will go to these small little telephone companies. They will buy blocks. They will buy blocks of telephone numbers, toll-free telephone numbers, and then they will blast out automated phone calls. Anybody cell phone? Your cell phone, you've gotten calls that, you know, your bank account has been compromised, your credit card. Please call this number. Or if it's get schmishing, which is the SMS, the text messages, and you'll get a text message. Oh, I got to click on this link that's going to get me in touch with my credit card company to stop my credit card from being compromised. That's what it is. It's a phishing scam. Okay? They just use the telephone. Okay? Here's a short message service. That's what SMS stands for. It's a schmishing. You know, congratulations. Hey, you just won the lotto. You know. Again, you drop your guard. You think, oh wow, I don't want to lose out on this opportunity. I click on royalbank.co UK in the United Kingdom because I want to collect that money. And you just fell prey to a scam. Okay? Again, do not release information, do not click anything until you verify the legitimacy of the account. Viruses and malicious software. Here's where we start getting into the high tech. These are the more professional, well-educated, technologically savvy computer fraudsters. These people know, they know how to write code, because that's basically what viruses and maliciousware is. It's a code that gets embedded into your computer if you allow it to enter your computer. Okay. Malware, another name for malicious software, just a short. And there's, you know, we call it malware, we call it ransomware, spyware, adware. Basically, spyware, it's going to spy. Adware, it's going to be adding software to your scareware to scare you. Ransom, that's another form that they're using now. Okay? If they're able to infiltrate your computer and take control, you will get a ransom note from them. Hey, we'll release your computer back to you if you send this money to us. So you got to be careful with protecting your computer against this, and what you're going to do is use up-to-date anti-spyware software, antivirus, anti-malware, spyware. Protect your computer as much as possible. Try not clicking on those hyperlinks, because that's when they're going to embed this type of software. Hijacking your email browser. Sorry, that's a little dark up there. Email hijacking and browser hijacking. Okay? Basically, they're going to break into your email account. Very easy to do. Remember I said about social media? How many people here have ever put their email address out there? You know, supplied it, anyone, okay? So I have your email address. Well, they'll start looking at simple passwords. A lot of people use a pet's name, okay? Through social media, they'll look at postings, they'll look at some other information that you've released. They'll start trying to compile a password. They will attempt. If they had paid dirt, okay, or if they send you, another way they get your email address, if they send you, a notification, hey, this is, through a phishing expedition, they send you an email and you go, oh, they need my password. You release that password and they know your email account. They're going to take over your email. Happens a lot with small businesses. Why? Because small businesses don't have the finances to use elaborate encrypted systems and secure their data like a larger company. So what happens is, what do? They use their computer, one computer, for business and personal. So they get an email from a friend that has a hyperlink, they click on it, okay? It gets embedded, or they get their email hijacked. And what happens is this: if I'm a fraudster and I take over your email, the first thing I'm going to do is change your password so that you can't get in to your email. And now I'm going to take control of your email, and now I'm going to look back in history and I'm going to be scouring for correspondence with your bank or with some other entity. I've had several cases like this. What happens next is I go, oh, Pinnacle Liberty Bank. Oh, here's an email from Mary Smith. That must be their business client, customer-client relationship. So they piggyback off of the last email between you and Mary. They say, oh, Mary, here's the urgency. There's always an urgency. Mary, I'm out of town at a family funeral. I need to do a wire. Can you really do? Oh, no, you're supposed to come in. No, please, I really need to get this wire. This is a business opportunity. This is a true story. And what they're trying to make you do, the bank employee, is drop your guard and look and go, well, it is John, because this is that's his email address. And here's, if you go follow the string down, well, here's our correspondence. What they don't know is a fraudster has hijacked that email account, and now they're manipulating it and asking for this wire to be done. We almost sent out a wire. We almost lost a lot of money because they know that banks, in particular, what do banks strive to their employees? Customer service. I want to provide great customer service. So, geez, no, it's his address. It's coming from him. We'll do the wire. Thank God we stopped it. Browser, kind of same thing. They're taking control of your browser, and they're going to manipulate sites that you want to go to. They will change them. So you've got to be careful. You've got to really look at your computer when you're doing things. Some of the signs and symptoms, here's where you know if your email is hacked or hijacked. People listed in your contacts, they get flooded with spam. They'll get all these, what appear to be messages from you or in relationship to your account. It looks like it was generated from your account. They'll be bombarded. You start receiving a lot of bounced emails back. You're not able to log on to your account. There's a big, did you know that your email account? If you can't get into your email, your password's not working, that means that it's been hijacked and they changed your address. discover that the settings have been altered, and you attempt to use an email and you find that your service provider has blocked you because of excessive spam that's been sent there. Sometimes this is just some little teenager that's doing it as a joke. There are a lot of kids out there that far exceed my knowledge. And
whenever I change the password, I always get an email saying that my password, confirming the password's been changed.
most of the times you should. Sometimes you don't. Okay, a gentleman says, usually I get, a text message or email. And a lot of like the banks, our bank, anytime I do an online transfer of funds, I get a text message that says, a transfer was just done for this amount of money. We're catching on, but again, they'll adjust. But just some things to keep in mind. Okay. What's the cause of it? Number one is your behavior on the internet. Number one. Okay. You open something, instant message, Skype, Facebook. That's where a lot of information is coming out. People are sharing it, not really being suspected of the information that they're receiving and the information that they're sending out. How many people have ever used a public computer to check their email? Going into a library, hotel, how they have these free computers available that you can get on? Do not use those and check personal email, check your bank accounts. If you want to look at the web on those, great. Anything else? There could be, unless you scour that computer, you don't know if it has a virus in it. You don't know if there's in the UBS port in the back, if there's a thumb drive that's collecting and has data and it's grabbing data as you enter it. Never ever use a public computer. Okay? And looking for personal information, and then you use it and you don't log off, which many people don't. They just go click out of Outlook if that's where your email, and you walk away, that's still running in the background. You have a weak password. Again, easy to figure out. Thieves that you can also buy, a software that will run an algorithmic analysis on your computer. When I was with the state police and Homeland, my last assignment was Homeland Security, I had a class in cyber terrorism, just a basic class. In the class, we're doing passwords. This goes back to 2007. They said strong password back then was 8 characters. Now we're up to 14 or more. The more characters, okay, so your one character is one letter, one number, one symbol, whatever, that's a character. So now they want you to have a combination, 14 long. And the reason is these software programs, if they're able to get it into your computer, will run an algorithmic analysis, and within literally minutes, it will figure out your password. Okay. How to protect against it? Under robust email. What that means is, use something that is not too complex where you're going to forget or you need to write it down. Okay? You can use something that's meaning this one here, up here, okay? Your email address, rather than John Peterson or J. Peterson at yahoo.com or whatever. Instead, I put JN for John, maybe his date of birth or a number significant, PTR for Peterson, 05N at whatever, Yahoo. So there's my email name rather than Sabetta at Yahoo. Password, again, you know, you could, something that you can remember. Maybe your first two initials in the month you're born, maybe your wife's two initials, her date of, you know, the date of her birth, you know, the 10th, and then maybe your kids, and then use a symbolism. Okay? Try to, something that you can remember, but something that gives you some length, and something that someone can't sit there and figure out, you know, well, let me use part of his first name, his last name, or his kid's name, or the dog's name, or the cat's name. Again, protect your computer with virus protection, malware, spyware. Secure Wi-Fi. Make sure that the Wi-Fi, if you're using, everybody know what Wi-Fi is? Okay. You know, make sure it's properly secured. There should be what's called a WP. It's a Wi-Fi protected access. It's usually on your router. Make sure there's a key to properly secure your internet. When I was down at this conference, there was a gentleman from a company that assists law enforcement in extracting data from mobile devices on criminals. When he began his talk, he had a computer like this. It had a little, what looked like a UBS port. It was actually an antenna, a receiver. While he was talking, for the first couple of minutes of introduction, people sitting there. And then he went to his computer and he hit a button, and on the screen, a string, it just kept going. All these numbers, which were IP addresses, he was capturing everyone's IP address, Wi-Fi, because your phone emits the signal. So within minutes, you know, those people who didn't disable their phones from Wi-Fi, you know, go into settings and go, oh, shut Wi-Fi off, shut Bluetooth off. He was getting, he said, kids especially have everything active because they want the fastest, so they leave their Wi-Fi on to try to, you know, pick up a free Wi-Fi that's being, a signal that's being emanated. What he did next is he says, what I will do, how many people here, the name of the hotel we were at was Embassy Hotel, and their Wi-Fi was H Honors, was the Wi-Fi. Free Wi-Fi, hotel free, anybody within that range. He said, I will clone their Wi-Fi and I will strengthen the signal. Where do you think people are going to go to? The weak signal or the stronger signal? So you click on the stronger signal, it's his. Now he's extracting a lot of information from this device. If he wants to send a kind of a phishing message to the phone, similar to like with a computer, and you're unsuspecting, you go, oh, it's a free app. Guess what? The app is just like anything else. It could embed files into the phone. Okay, all because it's unsecured. So be careful when you're using Wi-Fi. You shouldn't be really, especially if you have bank information, if you have like, you can do your banking on these, be careful of unsecured Wi-Fi because it's out there for the grab. Okay, we already went over kind of the email and yep.
So, are you by default suggesting instead of using any restaurant or other places Wi-Fi, we use your GL, depending on all people?
Yeah, you should see.
Secure.
Again, it's suggested if you want to reduce the chance of your information being compromised, to not use open public Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi, to use a secure link.
And that 4GL, that's secure.
Yeah, 4GL is different. Wi-Fi is emanated from
Right, like you have in your house.
Right, like you have at your house
Right.
or a cafe. Because they will target, they know that people generally, go into a cafe.
Starbucks, yeah.
I don't want to use a name, but just be careful of what you are generating through that. I wouldn't go and check your,
So again, the accounts.
right, I wouldn't go in and check my bank account. I'd wait till I go home,
Be right, it's
or,
not.
or I know someplace that I could get on a secure Wi-Fi access to do that. Again, these suggestions are just to try to lower your risk. But you know what, I mean, the technology is just, it's hard to keep up with. And if you forget to turn off on your phone, it's convenience. What do? We're creatures of nature, especially young kids. You know how impatient young kids are.
Simsbury Public Library, 2 of them. Take your pick.
And, and again, they could clone it, and then they can have you go into their Wi-Fi, and it just gives them the capability. Not to say that all free public Wi-Fis are going to extract information from your phone. What I'm saying is that someone can easily go there, replicate that Wi-Fi, give it a stronger bandwidth, and which one are you going to go with? You're going to go with the one that has the more bars, because you figure it's going to be faster and you're going to be able to use it. Question?
Yeah, well, a comment, you're going to know better. Everybody else is going to think I'm a plant. But while we've been sitting here, I just got an email from Wells Fargo saying somebody tried 3 times to enter my account, and they shut it down. And if that's not me, then I maybe want to go and change my password, change my username. And I don't even know if it's really them, based on what you just said. But literally within 2 minutes.
And you should be able to, you can verify that. I'm sure you have a number that you could contact Wells
I
Fargo.
would have hit this hyperlink if you hadn't just.
Yeah.
I get those same emails from Wells Fargo.
No,
I don't even have a Wells Fargo account.
That's right.
What I'm trying not to, I'm not here to give you scare tactics, please. I'm trying to reduce some, I'm trying to give you some education on what the susceptibilities are out there, what makes you vulnerable, how you can reduce your risk. You know what? We face risk every day. We'll either accept that risk or we try to reduce the risk. So these are just from the industry, some of the things that are out there that you should be aware of and where you are susceptible. Question?
Paying bills online as opposed to checked. Is one safer than the other?
Yeah, as long as, again, as long as you know that you're communicating through a secure channel. Okay? If it's a free Wi-Fi, if I'm sitting in Starbucks and it's a free Wi-Fi, it's not secure, and I want to take the risk of going and looking at my account and doing a transfer or a payment, there's a risk that if there's a fraudster that's in the area that is replicating that signal, and I'm choosing his signal rather than the legitimate Starbucks, that information could be extracted and grabbed. That's where the risk is. Okay? But it's an option. That's your option, whether you want to take that risk or not. Okay. Hopefully I'm not confusing. Man in the browser, again, this one here, it's a little different than hijacking your email or hijacking the browser itself. This is an actual virus or process, okay, programmed by the hacker. It's called a Trojan. Everybody knows the Trojan horse from Rome, is the Roman times, right? Greek times, thank you. It was one of those countries. But basically, what it does is it attacks from, behind the scene. They embed it into your computer, and it starts grabbing information. And basically what it does is you won't even know it's there. And it's like someone looking over your shoulder, like a transparent screen. As you enter your account information, it's grabbing it. you see your transaction, okay, I'm going to go to Liberty Bank, to my account at Liberty Bank, I want to transfer $500 from checking into savings. They're going to quickly grab that. It's going to look like your transaction went through, but then they're going to, behind the scenes, they're going to reroute that to a different account. You're not going to find out until later when you reconcile your statement, whether you do it electronically or wait for the paper at the end of the month, to know that that transmission didn't get, they're able to interrupt it. It's called a man in the browser, and they can, that's how they can get into your computer and start really manipulating transactions. And once, it will basically be asleep until, it will learn what links through the browser, the ULR, with your bank. As soon as that browser comes up, it pops the program into active mode, and they're able to grab that information in your router. That you want to stay away from. That's probably the extreme. Again, that's the importance of having the proper antivirus, anti-spyware, and those type of programs on your system. Make sure that they're updated and that they update automatically. And again, basically there's there's an infection point, which is your computer. Okay, there's the command and control point, that's where they are, and there's a drop, what they call a drop server, and that's where the information goes. And then when you look at it, it looks like it went to your bank account. Email attachments are the common way that a man in the browser gets into your computer. Again, I can't stress the importance of clicking on hyperlinks or email attachments in an email. Okay. UBS key, that's one of these devices, okay, that's able to be placed on your computer. That's why you don't use a free computer at a hotel, or because you don't know if one of those are in the back of the unit. It can be linked to a social network. Again, social networks is a big thing that they're looking, because there's a lot of weaknesses in that area. Once it's infected, it's very hard to detect until you notice that money is out of your account. And it's going to take a professional. You're going to have it serviced by someone professionally, professional computer service to come in and scour. We have.
Don't these antivirus softwares detect something like that?
That's why you want to have that on your computer. You want to have the updated anti-software. It needs to be updated probably weekly. Some will automatically update for you. Man in the browser attack, we had a few of those. Again, small business customer using one computer for personal business. It was a little market store, over 1,000 credit cards. What happened was that kind of a man in the browser, Trojan horse program got embedded into the computer, and what it did was it was stealing the data. Every time someone bought something and used a credit card and swiped it, it was grabbing that information between 5 banks, some of the larger banks and ourselves, and a couple smaller banks. Over 1,000 cards got compromised. And once the thieves are able to extract that information, basically what they do is they produce what's called a cloned credit card. Your credit card is now replicated. And guess where that information gets sent? It gets sent out there through the internet. To people out there, there's black markets and people buy that information. Okay? And next thing you know, we have these charges, $500 at Macy's out in Illinois, Kansas City. Okay? So it's because they didn't properly use antivirus, anti-malware software and they were clicking on links. They probably shouldn't. That's how it got embedded. They had to hire a professional company. It cost quite a bit of money to scrub their computer clean to get them back up and running in business. So basically, the other thing is card data breaches. Basically, your credit card, I'm not going to spend a lot of time because, again, as I stated earlier, you're not going to be at a loss up front. You're going to say, oh my God, $3,000, my debit card got hit, or my credit card. Again, the bank or the financial institution is really going to incur that loss. You'll get the credit back, you'll get the money back. It's going to just take a few days. Basically, they clone the cards like I just mentioned. They'll swipe. It's usually a swipe device. We see this at restaurants. You give your card to the nice waiter, and they have a pocket skimmer. It's called a pocket skimmer. They swipe it just like at the terminal, and it extracts the data that's on the magnetic strip of your card. It holds up to like 500 cards, and they either download that and make cards themselves, or they sell it on the black market. And then next thing you know, a month, 6 months, a year later, your credit card gets whacked for $500–600 in charges. The devices are usually, handheld in a restaurant. It could be that the terminal itself has been compromised. The other thing is, when you use an ATM machine, really look at the machine, because they have overlays. They will replicate the insertion port. Okay, and when you slide your card in, it legitimately will read, the bank will read the information and give you your money. But as you slide it through the unit that's been laid over the real one, that grabs your information too. Okay, so just be careful, look at the machine, don't be afraid to grab things, jiggle them, make sure that it's not something that's just laid over. The terminal process, these are the big ones. These are the Target, Home Depot, Kmart, Michaels. It seems like every week there's a new breach out there. Okay. Those are very high end. Again, I just put it up there because of, just to give you an idea of how your credit card, debit card information is compromised or extracted. Wi-Fi, again, the new area of attack. There's over 150,000 what's called hotspots. Okay, well, Wi-Fi is readily available to the public throughout the U.S. Open unsecured, it's the highest vulnerability. Where do you see them at? Airports, restaurants, cafes, malls. Okay, things are the libraries. Because you don't know what the fraudster looks like. You don't know if he's just using his computer legitimately, or if this is a receiver extracting information from the Wi-Fi. 2014, 58% of Wi-Fi transmissions were used by smartphones and tablets. Okay, mobile devices it's the wave of the future. And we'll see that percentage go up every year after this. Virtual machines, basically that's what that is. If I convert it, I can receive the electronic signals, extract that information. Okay, very much like computers. I could send out a phishing scam. I could send out links to download rogue apps. This is kind of a new thing, synthetic ID. Basically what people are doing is they're setting up false identification. And they're doing it in a couple of ways. One is they can totally use what we call synthetic, made-up information. Or they can use a combination. They can get some of your social security number. In 2011, Social Security, everybody, how many people here have a social security number that begins in 040 to 049? I could tell you that was issued in Connecticut. The first three numbers were the state that it was issued. What Social Security learned that people fraudsters were able, through algorithmic calculation, able to get the remainder of the numbers. So what they did in 2011 is they no longer issue by the first 3-digit code for that state, they do it randomly. The problem with that is that I can synthetically make up a number, and if you run a credit check, the only thing it's saying is that number hasn't been issued. Doesn't even say if it's a legitimate number. What's happening is that there are legitimate websites that you can share your credit. Money is everything. People that are desperate, just like we have these check fraud rings, they entice young kids. Hey, you want to make $5,000, $1,000? Open this account, give me your debit card after it's opened up, and I'm off to the races. Same here. What this does is I rent out your credit. Now, I can't get access to your credit card or the account. All I could do is, on your credit, I'm listed as an authorized user. So if I develop this synthetic identity, what they do is they try to build up the credit of that new identity rapidly. So they'll look for people that are willing to let me, for a fee, be on their credit. What that does is the new identity, it builds up the credit rating. Now what they do is what we call a bust-out scam. And what they do is they apply for a mortgage, they apply for a loan, they get the monies, because when the credit report is run, your good credit has raised that credit, and it's all false identification. And once they get the funds, they're gone. They take the funds, they run before the bank realizes. The reason why I'm bringing this up is be careful of, if you're looking to make extra money, to allow people to piggyback on your credit, number one. Number two, they're targeting minors. How many people here have kids? How many people here have gotten their social security numbers when they were first born or young? Now, they're not going to use that. There's really going to be no credit. And dollars to donuts, how many people have run a credit check on their kids' social security numbers? So you're thinking that, that social security number is stagnant, it's inactive. If they're able to get that information, they will extort. They will grab that credit, and they'll use it through the synthetic method. And now when your kids get to 15, 16 years old and they go to get their, all of a sudden you get a credit report that hits on that there's outstanding debt on that social security number. So what you want to do, it's also called skip traces validated. There's a whole litany of other information on that. But what you want to do is really try to keep an eye on your kids' credit and yours. And I'll get in a moment. I'll get into how you could do that. Recovery action. If you're ever a victim, the first thing you need to do is file a report with the local police, because you want to quickly show your creditors, your bank, credit card companies, if God forbid they took out credit in your name, you want to show them that you're a victim of identity theft. To do that, you need to have a police report and a case number. You need to contact the creditors in your financial institutions. Advise them that you're a victim of fraud, victim of identity theft. You can actually place notes on your account. If I have a customer at Liberty Bank that's a victim, if I go into their profile, there's notes in there that state, victim of identity theft, you need to do this, this, and this to challenge the person, especially with our call center, because what happens is if I get that information, I can, again, pretext. I can pose as the real customer trying to get, either transfers or more information on their account. So what you could do with your bank is you can tell them, I want to set up a password or a challenge question on my profile. In this way, if someone calls pretending to be you, the only person that should have that PIN number, password, or question, answer to the question, should be you, no one else.
Can a parent do that for one child?
Okay? You need to place an alert with the 3 major credit bureaus, a fraud alert. If you suspect you're a victim, but you're not sure, you can do what's called a fraud alert. You can have a flag placed on your credit for 30 days. I'm sorry, 90 days. After 90 days, it falls off, unless you are truly a victim of identity theft. What do you need to prove that? Police report. There's another thing that you'll need, Federal Trade Commission, ftc.gov. You can download an affidavit form. You fill out that affidavit form, it gets notarized, and that's what you send. You send a copy of that to whoever creditor, or bad credit is taken out, or whatever financial institute, to show that you're a victim of identity theft. You send it to one, all you need to do is send it to one of the 3 major credit bureaus. The other 2 will automatically put a fraud alert on your account. If you're a victim, it gets extended for 7 years, so your credit is flagged. If someone tries to open up credit in your name, they get challenged. Okay, the credit bureau, if I go to a car dealership, I have your identity, I want to buy a new car under your identity. When I sit down and they do a credit check, it's going to flag. That dealership has to verify my identity. Okay. Again, just like up here, on your credit report, you can have a challenge question, a password, a PIN number. The credit bureau will ask that company, ask the applicant what their PIN number or password is. Guess what? The fraudster is not going to know it because you're the one that, you placed it on your account to safeguard. That's how we're going to catch these people and stop them. Okay? This is the website that I recommend when I was on the Governor's Advisory Board. This is the site we recommended because it is totally free. Be careful if you go online looking for credit reports, or if it's not this site, they will give you a credit report free, but they usually will enroll you 30-day free trial of their monitoring. If you don't cancel out in the 30 days, they start billing you automatically. Okay? So you have to be careful. This is the only one that will not enroll you. It's annualcreditreport.com, one word. Now, here's my suggestion. By federal law, the 3 major credit bureaus, TransUnion, Experian, Equifax, must supply you with a free credit report once a year. So what you could do is you could go once a year and get 3 free credit reports, or you could bracket it out every 4 months. This month I go to TransUnion, 4 months from now I go to Experian, 4 months from now, from that I go to Equifax, 4 months later, the year's up, I go back to TransUnion. You really should, at least once, if you don't do it 3 times a year, at least once, run a credit report on yourself, on your spouse, on your kids. Because there might be information on that credit report that accounts that I don't have, credit that I don't have. I never had a credit card with Macy's or, a debit card with Capital One, and it's showing that I do. There also could be information that you need to dispute. Hey, wait a second, I was never late on this payment. They had me down for 90 days late. So you really should check your credit. Again, with your kids especially, if their Social Security is lying out there in a dormant status, because someone, you're not going to know if someone tapped into that Social Security.
Nick, there's a section of those reports, usually at the tail end, which shows everybody who has been checking your credit,
Yes.
usually for marketing purposes. Is there any way to stop that? I mean, not that it's terribly bothersome, but, I mean, the one that I see all the time is Lexus. And I don't know what they think, I don't know if they think they're gonna be selling me a car, but I mean,
Yeah, Lexus and Acura, a lot of them, those are databases that credit bureaus will use and banks and financial institutions will use to look at your credit. If you have a fraud alert, the only people that will be able to run a check like that on you and get results is somebody that you already have established credit. Okay?
it's really actually kind of amusing to see how many
Oh, yeah.
are out there.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many people run credit checks on.
Well, I mean, for example, I'd be willing to bet you everybody in this room who's got a account with CLNT, they're running a credit check on you fairly regularly.
Yeah, it's an established credit that you have. They're allowed to do that. One more time.
Okay. What about freezing your credit?
Okay, good
How-
question. I was going to
how
get
good
into
is
that. Yeah, I was going to get into that. Let me just really quick touch on this photo. You can here's the other advice. Do a credit check on yourself, and you should monitor your credit. Now, you could do it yourself. How do you do that? Well, you set up online banking. You go in. My wife goes in every day. I can't tell you how many times she's asked me, did you go to lunch at the, if I use my credit card, yes, I did. I went to, did you buy something? Yes, I bought some, which is great. Can't pull the wool over her eyes, but you know what? I know nobody else is going to be grabbing, she's going to come right on it instantly, because if you do online banking, it gives you the availability to monitor your accounts 24/7. If I wait for my paper statement to come in the mail, it's 30 days. A lot of time there, people could be, into your account. If you don't have, you want a little more conveniency, I got to remember to do this every 3 months or 6 or 4 months or every year. There are a myriad of agencies or companies that will monitor your credit for a nominal fee. And they go anywhere from $6.95 a month to $50 a month per person. So if it's one of the ones that charge you $50, that's $100 a month if you're married, because both you and your wife have credit. You might have combined credit, you're going to have separate credit, so you have the three major credit bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, have monitoring. So, what I tell people, it's like an insurance policy. Look at what they offer, look at how much, pick one that's affordable to you and fits your lifestyle and your needs. You don't have to get the Cadillac, you can get the Fiat. Who drives a Fiat? I used to own one many years ago. But anyway, the point is, don't just go with, do some research, just like anything else. Fraud or credit freezes. Okay?
Quick question on that last. Do some of those, in addition to what they're checking it and telling you, do any of them insure you?
Yeah, again, each one has a different flair. Who's going to insure you for $1 million? Well, you know what? Again, most times the banks are going to be, you're really not going to lose that money. There's one out there that says, we'll provide free legal service. And what they do is they show you a video that, they see a police officer stopping a car. Next thing you know, the occupant is handcuffed and taken to the police station because someone used their identity. It's, they're not the ones that committed the crime. Somebody else used their identity, and when they got apprehended, they used your identity, so now there's an outstanding warrant for your arrest, and now you get stopped just because maybe you made a right turn where you're not supposed to. So they scare you a bit, saying, "Oh, if it's on a weekend and you're going to be locked up, we have people available 24/7, legal counsel that will step in and intervene." So again, look at them, do a little research, find out what they're about, what they offer, and whatever suits your needs. Credit freeze, wow, I'm going over here, I'm sorry. Credit freeze, real quick. What that does is it freezes your credit. No one has access to your credit other than those that you already have established credit. Okay, so if someone attempts to open up credit in your name, they're going to get locked out. The problem is this, okay, a little inconvenience. One is you need, remember before the fraud alert, I said you just contact one credit bureau and the other two will automatically put the same fraud alert on their files? A credit freeze, you have to contact each one individually to put the freeze on. It's going to cost you between $10 and $12 per credit bureau. So that's roughly $36 to freeze your credit. Of course, again, if you want to freeze your wife's credit, your kid's credit, double, triple that amount. You have to send a written letter stating that you want your credit frozen, yada yada. Good for kids. Don't freeze it now. Let the freeze stay until they turn 16 if you want to protect your credit. Good for elderly people. Like my parents in their mid-80s, you know what? They're never going to apply for credit again. So, yeah, if you're never going to apply for credit, you might want to freeze it. The problem is if you ever want to apply for credit, now you have to contact them, the 3 major credit bureaus, at least 3 days in advance before you apply for that credit so that they unfreeze your account. Again, you got to pay to have the freeze removed. So see, it gets a little complicated, but it has the most assurance of locking up your credit. It's the best way to freeze your credit. But again, it has to suit your needs. If you are the victim of some type of email scam that you fell prey to, or your identity theft, Internet Crime Complaint Center, you can file a complaint. This is administered by the FBI. It's an online complaint site. So there's some place that you could also make a complaint if you're a victim. They're the ones that are connecting the dots of these type of fraud scams and computer breaches, anything electronic. Okay? And the last thing that I tell people is, the internet is a plethora of information and it's free. Educate yourself. If you're not sure of what malware is, go into the search engine, whatever you use, Google it, type in malware attacks, man-in-the-browser attacks. You will find a lot of different websites that you can go with. Now, look at the website. These are some of the ones that are very reputable. I've used. PC World is very, very good. It's a good resource to go on. Bleeping Computers, another one, nice name, but it's a good website. Actually, there's no space there, it's one word. SecurityIntelligence.com. These are some of the ones that you can go on. They're free, a lot of information. I strongly recommend, if you're not familiar with a lot of this stuff that we covered tonight, educate yourself, you know, some night, instead of watching TV, you know, just go on the computer and say, oh, you know, what's this malware, what it's about, you know, what's this, it'll even give you remedies, you know, recommendations, hey, if your computer, here's some of the signs and symptoms of malware. Oh, wow, those are the same symptoms that I have. I'm like, okay, here's what you can do to restore that. Here's what you could do to try to correct that. Okay? Again, my name, Nick Sabetta. That's my information. If I haven't answered your questions tonight, if I can't answer them, I will promise that if you call me, I'll try to get you the answer. We have a great staff of IT people. I mean, that's their forte. They know the lingo that I always have to tell them, you know, click it down a bit. You're way over my head on that. So I'll get you the answer. I'll try to put you in the right direction. Always available. I mean, John, we haven't talked in what, 4 or 5 years, 6 years. So they call me out of the blue, and here I am tonight. So always want to be helpful to people, to try to help them avoid being a victim of identity theft or fraud.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.